Welcome to the Bill Moran Show on WVLP LP 103.1 FM and streaming live at WVLP.org or on your TuneIn app. We are broadcasting live from the historic 1 Center Street building in beautiful Valparaiso, Indiana. The Bill Moran Show is underwritten by Recovery Works of Maryville, Indiana. And now, here is your host, Bill Moran.
Welcome to the Bill Moran Show on this bright, sunny, enjoyable day.
Yay.
And, yeah, yay is right. It's going to be a great week heading into the weekend. Keep your fingers crossed. I think we could end up with a sunny, warm weekend. It's
Memorial
awesome.
Day weekend, a nice one.
Yeah.
Woo.
So welcome to the show. And with us today, we have one of our huge heroes of Valparaiso. We call him Rambo, as the students do.
And one of my favorite people.
One of our favorite people, Lenny Corso, is with us today. Welcome to the show, Lenny.
Thank you very much for having me back.
It's always a pleasure to have you here. It's great because we really don't have to do any work. We just sit back and kind of listen. In fact, Dave Reynolds called ahead and said, can you ask Lenny to stop before I come on the air?
On time, right?
So, yeah, first hour will be Lenny, and shortly after that we will have at roughly around 12 o'clock, if Lenny stops talking, we'll have Sheriff Reynolds on the show for the second hour. So with that, welcome, Lenny, and we've got some interesting things to talk about today. One of them is this new program that the Kiwanis, and is it also the Rotary Club as well? They're participating in this one, or is it just Kiwanis?
The Salute to the Recruits is strictly Kiwanis, and Rotary and Kiwanis will be doing another Veterans Appreciation Dinner, which will be November the 7th of this year.
Okay. All right. Well, why don't we hear about your background and why you are so intimately involved with the Veterans Program and passionately involved with the veterans programs in the area. You are a veteran yourself.
Yes, sir, I am. Yep. Let me digress back to last November when we had the Veterans Appreciation Dinner, which you both attended.
Yes,
thank you very
wonderful.
Much. We had been doing a veterans program for many, many years. I think back in 1987, 88 was when it first started. We always had it at lunchtime. And the problem is not very many people can attend an hour and a half lunch unless you're retired or you're a salaried person or your business allows you to go. And we brought in normally about 160, 180 people. Rotary came to one of ours. They had their own veterans program and dinner, but it was a lunch also for about an hour and a half. They brought in about 100. And we decided, when I took over the chairmanship for Kiwanis, I said, we need to move this to the evening time so more people can attend. And at that time, Rotary had approached us and said, why don't we collaborate, merge both of our dinners together and move it to the evening time, like you suggested, and see what happens. Well, what happened was we sold the place out.
Oh, yeah, you did.
We had 400 and some odd veterans and guests there. We had about 50 members of the Valparaiso University Band. Ed Soliday was our speaker. He was a helicopter pilot in Vietnam. He had some great stories to share. And every veteran that attended last year was honored. And we had a 99 and a 98-year-old veteran.
I know. I met them, and that was amazing.
Tremendous individuals. And so having been so successful with that event, we decided to do this Salute to the Recruits. Now, I'm not taking credit for that because John Bowker, who is with Valparaiso University and a member of our Kiwanis Club, and he announces a lot of the VU games, came up with the idea about 5 years ago. This is our 5th year doing it, Salute to the Recruits, in which individuals who are going to the military right out of high school, and he thought, well, why don't we honor them? And when you stop and think about it, students or kids that are academically gifted, they get scholarships and recognition. Kids that are athletically gifted, they get letter jackets and they get recognition. What do kids get that are enlisting into our military and armed forces for 4 years or longer? What do they get upon graduation? Nothing. So we decided to change that. And John Bowker had that foresight to start this program. We had run it 4 years in the lunch group, and we realized after the success of the dinner program with the Veterans Appreciation Dinner, we needed to move at the evening time. Well, right now we're still formulating the numbers, but the Navy is going to bring 25 recruits. The Marines bring in about 25 recruits. The Army's bringing about 25 to 30 recruits. We're dealing with the Air Force today, making a presentation today. We believe they'll have 25 recruits. We just talked to the National Guard. We're waiting for confirmation. They could bring 100 recruits. Each of these recruits will be identified by name at our Salute the Recruits dinner. They'll be recognized by the recruiters, and they'll be honored that night. So the whole purpose of the dinner will be to honor them, that we know that things are going to get somewhat anxious for you as you get ready to leave, because it's a big change from a loving environment at home to going in where people are yelling and screaming at you 24/7.
Finger in the face.
Yes, and don't eyeball me without my permission now.
That's right.
Particularly the sergeants,
Yes,
the
yes.
drill sergeants. They are
Yes. And so
they're your friend, drill
we're-
sergeants. That's what they say.
Your drill sergeants are there to get you to pay attention to detail. Because if you don't pay attention to detail, somebody gets hurt or killed. It can be something simple, like a blasting cap is not where it's supposed to be. It can be something just with your shoelaces untied. But they make you pay attention to detail, because you need to do your best at being perfect at the job you're being assigned to or trained for.
Right.
So that's I'm really excited about it, as you can probably tell. I think if we sell this out, we've set a protocol, if you will, for all of our future events for the recruits.
Right.
Not only in Porter County, but I went down for a training workshop for the Kiwanis Club down in Wabash, Indiana, and they had other people that were going to become officers. So it was about a 6-hour training program. And since I'm moving from vice president this year to president-elect, and then next year after that as president, you have to go through a training program to handle those officerships. So while I was down there, I took flyers and posters for the Salute the Recruits, and they just thought it was an awesome idea. And we believe there's 2 other communities. I think Indianapolis is one. I'm not sure if it's Lafayette, the other one. But they just thought it was just an incredible idea to go and honor. And I said, whether the Kiwanis Club in your community does it, or whether you collaborate with your VFW or the American Legion in your area to make sure it happens. But these young men and women, they need to be recognized for a couple hours before they get deployed off to basic training, so to speak.
Okay. And again, this is open to veterans.
It's
of
open
all-
to anyone.
Anyone.
Yes,
So-
and let me put that plug in now. It's $20 a ticket, and you can purchase the tickets for this event, which will be June the 6th, which is the Invasion of Normandy D-Day.
It's a Wednesday night.
It's a Wednesday night, 5:30 to 8:30 at the Old Town Banquet Center at 711 Calumet Avenue, in Valparaiso. And they can pick up those tickets at any First Source branch bank in Valparaiso. And right now they got tickets left, but I imagine after the show they may not have many left, and that's
true.
what we're hoping for.
Right.
Well-
and there will not be tickets available at the door. You
That's
have to
correct.
pre-buy.
Thank you for clarifying. All tickets must be purchased before June the 1st.
Right.
That is our deadline, because we have to give a head count to the caterer to make sure we have a proper head count for food.
Right.
Perfect.
And one thing I do want to announce that Kelly and myself have decided to buy a table of tickets for veterans.
And we thank you very much. And that's what really moved those seats last year. Was I think there were a total, including the table you bought for the Friends of Bill Moran, there were like 13 tables that were sold out of, I think we had, I can't remember, 40, about 42 tables that were available. And the benefit of buying a full table is you're guaranteed all your friends can sit together, whereas it's open seating if you buy 1 or 2 tickets.
Well, for us, we just want to make sure veterans who can't afford normally are there. So it's something we'll do again come the dinner for the veterans, and so.
Well, we really appreciate it very much because that helps us a great deal, and we're at probably 2/3 of the way there of having a sellout. Maybe after today or tomorrow, we might be 3/4 of the way there. But I'm a zealot when it comes to veterans, and I want to sell out. And I will do whatever I have to do to make sure
it
that
goes beyond that. You're an extremely competitive person, aren't you,
Very
Lenny?
competitive.
Very competitive. So
I don't care if it's billiards or table tennis. I'm competitive.
yeah, so we witnessed that over the years too. So yeah, it's an amazing event. And this is, we attended the Veterans Dinner last year, and this is going to be different a bit because this is for recruits or to honor the recruits going in. And you don't hear about that very often.
No.
You don't.
Unfortunately, you hear about after they're in service, and
Right.
sometimes it's not in a good fashion. And
And it'll be a very positive program too. Yes, there'll be respects paid. We're going to play taps and to honor those because it's going to be right shortly after Memorial Day. But it's my little presentation to these recruits is, this is how it went for me. It was a cold December, I believe it was December the 8th, 1966. My father, he took me down to the bus station, and we got on the bus. He gave me a hug. It was kind of like cold, wet rain coming down. I never questioned the Vietnam era. My father, who only had one eye, he had a glass eye, but he still served in the military. And all of my relatives, except for one, served in World War II. And so my father gave me a hug, and he says, "Good luck, son." And I got on the bus, and it was a lonely ride from 5 o'clock to roughly about 7:30 to 8 o'clock down to the induction center. And there was a processing that basically took most of the day. And then we got on another bus, and they drove us down for my group to Fort Knox, Kentucky. And we got in at 2 o'clock in the morning. And coming off that bus, and all the screaming, yelling started. At 2 o'clock in the morning. We're exhausted. We've been up since 5 o'clock or 4:30 in the morning, and now these guys, where's the compassion? There is no compassion. You're now government property.
Oh, hold it. So when you talk to your recruiter, all this thing about sailboats and foreign lands and having a drill sergeant saying, we're so happy to see you.
Air-conditioned barracks, 3 square meals a day, a nice warm cot. Yeah, right.
You line you up for the haircut, and you're all there after that.
That was interesting because depending on where you're at in line, they just say, "And sir," and of course the barbers are civilians, and they said, "Sir, how would you like your hair trimmed?" "Well, a little bit over here and here," and he goes right down the middle with that razor. And I mean, everything comes.
You don't really get a choice. And
you don't get a choice.
Can you blend it into the top? Yeah, we'll blend it in the top. All right.
Blend the whole thing together.
What do they say? They're going to give you a white wall. More than white walls, a white head. That's what you get.
Exactly. Yeah. It's everybody. Everybody looks the same because they're taking whatever environment you came from. They bring you down to a basic common denominator, and then they build you back up the way they want you to be. And there has to be a lot of conformity. And people who don't want to conform, they wash out pretty quick. And if it's really bad, you go to the brig, But
now, don't scare any of these guys.
No. Reality is reality.
I'm very positive. Those
what
are
about the cruise ships? What about the sailboats? What about the foreign meals?
Well, some of that's out of
you'll
there.
get foreign meals, all right.
It was really interesting because in the Vietnam era, we were getting leftover stuff from World War II and Korea, and the barracks had no air conditioning. You just lifted the windows up, and the mosquitoes came in.
Wow.
And it was pretty rough. And of course, I went through basic training in January, February, and March, and that was cold. And many of you that were in Northwest Indiana that remember that 1967 snowstorm that paralyzed. I mean, even US 30 was closed down.
Yeah.
Well, it hit I don't know what that is.
No, just ignore
It's
it.
a call for the recruits.
Okay, I see.
We're
All right.
mounting up right
That's
now.
right.
Line
We're
up for
telling them right
inspection.
now. Sign up for this.
Now it's for some reason the emergency broadcast system.
Yeah, it goes off every week.
Yeah. I think something about us.
That
They
might be.
declare an emergency
That might be.
we're on the air. So
Well, it was that winter. It was rough. And
It was.
in Fort Knox, Kentucky, I don't think they have trucks with blades on them because we were snowed in for 2 to 3 days of training. I mean, we couldn't do anything. And in fact, for one day, we didn't have any food. We just had, thank goodness, the drinking fountains didn't freeze. We had water, but nobody could make it in. The cooks couldn't make it in anything. And we went through that. And I remember doing physical training. Our PT test was about 25 degrees, and we're running in combat boots. There was no such thing as running shoes back then. I bring that up to the new recruits when I talk to them.
Yeah, there you
Look, you guys doing your PT test in those running shoes
Yeah,
and
that's right.
comfortable
You get
shorts.
trainers.
I said I had these leather boots and my khaki pants, and I stripped down just to my T-shirt, and it was 25 degrees, and they said, run your 4 miles or run your 1 mile run, and that was kind of the way it was.
And when I was a kid, we had to walk to school in 5 feet of snow.
So there wasn't any lining up at the treadmill to fit on your running shoes
No,
and making
no,
sure it's
no,
properly
no.
balanced.
Listening to your iPad as you
with
run.
an iPod, and your Nike
Yeah.
Connect, and no, none of that.
And then after the 3 minutes of basic training, then I was kind of treading water, waiting for orders. I was going to become a combat medic, but before. I went to Fort Sam Houston, Texas, and did my basic medical training, which would be the equivalent of an EMT these days. And then, because by the way, EMTs and paramedics didn't exist until after the Vietnam War. And that's because they learned about triage and quick medevacs and so forth. So a lot of the stuff we see today came out of the Vietnam War, EMT and paramedics and so forth. I was down at Fort Sam Houston, Texas, and then there was this. They herded us all into this big theater. It was a movie theater, air conditioned, soft seats. I said, "Well, this is good.
Ooh, yeah.
We don't have to be out in hot sun at Fort Sam." And all of a sudden, there was this Green Beret recruiter that was up there, and he says, "Gentlemen, all of you are here to be trained as medics, and I'm here to let you know that I'm here to recruit Green Beret medics, Special Forces medics." And I said, "Okay." I'd heard about Barry Sadler's Green Beret song, and that was about all I knew at that time. And he went through this protocol that everybody would have to go through. He says, you will be trained like basically a 3rd, 4th year medical student. We're going to train you to do amputations. We're going to train you to do a lot of suturing, put in chest tubes, all of these things that you would never be able to do until you were way into your medical school training as a physician. I caught my attention because obviously I was interested in that stuff.
Absolutely.
So he was going on, and he says, "Okay." He says, "You have to be able to pass our academic test." Now, this was not algebra and geometry testing. This was making the tough decision. And I remember when I was on your show before, I'd mentioned this example. One of the test questions. You and your teammate have been assigned a mission, and he's your demolition expert. You're the senior medic, and you broke your team off, so it's just the two of you. And the mission was you have to go and blow this bridge. And by blowing the bridge, you prevent the Russian tanks, which were given to the North Vietnamese, you prevent them from going across the bridge and maybe killing 1,000 American soldiers. And on your way there, through the triple canopy jungle, your demo guy steps on what we call a toe popping mine, blows half your foot off, but the guy's still alive. Now, what do? Do you stay with your teammate, who you're very close to, and you can probably then slowly drag him back out to some landing zone to where you can medevac him out? Or do you go and do the best you can to stop the bleeding and take the charges and go and blow the bridge? But by doing that, he could bleed out on you and die. And those were a lot of tough scenarios that they put you in. And the other one was you had to pass their physical training test. Well, because I was in excellent shape going in the military, and I tell this to all the recruits that I talk to now, I said I had resting heart rate of 44 beats per minute back then. So basic training was a yawner for me. I mean, it was boring from the physical training aspect, not from all the yelling and screaming and being held accountable for things. But I told them, I said, basic training is to get people out of shape, in shape. But for the Green Beret training, it was brutal. It was brutal, and I was in excellent shape. So you had to be able to pass that. Then he said, you have to be willing to go to airborne jump school, we call it, which is down at Fort Benning, Georgia, and learn to jump out of airplane planes to get your paratrooper wings. And then after that scenario, then you would go to Special Forces, and there's 3 phases to Special Forces, phase 1, 2, and 3, and then hopefully you make it through and you earn your Green Beret. And then finally, he said, you all have to be eligible for a top secret security clearance. You must be able to earn your secret security clearance before you're accepted. And, if you had any nasty stuff in your background, it eliminated you. 3 speeding tickets.
Oh, wow.
Most of us were about 21, 22 years of age. 3 speeding tickets would eliminate you. That's how tough it was. Because it showed negative behavior, and they said, okay, you've.
So far, I'm in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there you go. All
I'm
right.
good.
If
Let's go.
I ever would have gotten a speeding ticket with my dad, oh my God. Yeah.
Yes.
Talking about nasty events, I think I would have not seen the car till I was in my 60s.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And
I think I'm still grounded for some.
Probably are.
Well, and then at the end there, he said, okay, those of you that are interested, get up and go to the back of the room. And out of about 500 people in that auditorium, 35 of us got up out of those nice, soft, cushioned seats and went back. Now, these guys are looking at us like we are insane. We need to go see a therapist or something. You guys have a death wish. And before we went to the back, he mentioned one more thing. He says, those of you that do make it through, and this is the way he said it, 1/3 of you will be dead in a year, 1/3 of you will be physically injured, and 1/3 of you will come back physically whole. And he didn't talk about PTS, but they didn't talk about it that way.
Didn't talk about mentally whole.
And yet 35 of us still came back to the back of the room.
I would have been there.
And all of these
that's
people were
amazing.
just, you guys are nuts. You're crazy. And so we went back.
Well, you have to be a little bit, don't you?
Well, for me it was a challenge.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
It was a
lot of
challenge.
people won't do that.
And we went back there, and a couple people kind of came clean on their background. He says, "Tell me now, don't waste my time." And so I guess about three or five more people dropped. And then the rest of us went to jump school at Fort Benning, Georgia. Got our wings. That was a brutal heat, by the way. It was 90 to 100 degrees in Georgia. And after that, then we went to Fort Bragg and went through the training there. But out of that, basically 35 guys that went to the back, there was about 5 of us that earned our Green Berets.
Wow.
Yeah. And I spend a lot of my time motivating kids these days, whether it's at Ivy Tech. I teach advanced physiology out there to nursing students. And a lot of kids just lack the confidence in themselves that they don't think, they give up because they don't think they can do it. And it's all about my mantra of handling the tiger of adversity. I use that tiger metaphor and earning your tiger stripes, which is confidence and knowledge. If you gain the knowledge, you'll gain the confidence. And no, it's not easy, but the idea is don't quit.
Never could. That's what my parents used to always say to me.
Yeah. And when I went in, and of course the Special Forces training was brutal. It was good for one time through. I would not want to do it a second time. But when I graduated and earned my Green Beret, the 2 Green Berets that I have those mean more to me than my 3 college degrees, and because very few people have one. And I know I joined the Special Forces Association, where you have to send in your DD Form 214 to verify that you were in Special Forces, because a lot of times people will go around and say, well, I was a Navy SEAL or I was an Army Green Beret, and they're not.
No.
And so I'm on their Special Forces Association roster because they have DD Form 214. And so if anybody questions me, I said, go to the Special Force Association website and you'll see my name there.
Well, you bring that up. Actually, now I believe there's a state statute saying if you, for any reason, misrepresent yourself as a veteran, that is a crime.
And also there's one called stolen valor, in which you say, I'm a Medal of Honor winner, or I'm a Silver Star recipient, and you're not. And there's penalties that are affiliated with people going around and saying that
There should be.
As there should be, absolutely, absolutely.
You got to consider what these what
people
these
have
gone through.
Earn
they
that
put life
title,
at risk.
yes.
And, my gosh, and just think about some of the stories that we listened to at the Applebee's dinner.
Yes.
And oh my gosh, just you think about you're sitting home and watching TV, watching the moon landing. Well, these people are literally in the mud, worrying whether they're going to be alive or dead in the next couple of seconds. By the way, on a positive spin,
Yes.
you get a free. Yeah,
All right.
let's not.
Can you see it all right?
Let me see. Yep.
We good?
That's it.
Yeah,
that is the poster for Salute to the Recruits Dinner on June 6th, Wednesday, June 6th at 5:30 to 8:30 at Old Town Banquet Center. Tickets are $20 and great. Yeah, I just
Available at the First Source Banks here in Valpo?
Yeah, I don't want all these recruits bailing on us.
No.
Well, from what I understand, when we went to the recruiters, I said, now look, we want to make sure they attend. And I know two of the recruiters saying we're making it mandatory. They have to attend.
Good.
You are doing this for them. This is part of their requirement as far as I'm concerned, right, from the community. And we believe all the recruiters are going to make it mandatory.
That's great.
The interesting thing about that, and it is great, is that it's honoring the veterans that are going to be there,
Right.
And their duty that they served and the lives that they risk and getting a lot of these kids to the place where they're at, because a lot of us wouldn't be so fortunate had it not been.
They wouldn't be able to go into the military if the other guys hadn't served and made this country what it is now. And
Very true, very true. And the thing for the recruits, and each time I've gone and made my presentation about this program, I've told them, I said, I'm just going to let you know that I said, you need to understand that the military, particularly in basic training, it becomes a little better when you go to beyond basic training and advanced individual training where you're being trained for your job. It's more like going to work. But I told them, I said, in basic training, it's a mind game. And they're trying to get to you. They're trying to break you down. They want to see if you're a crier, you're going to cry right away. They want to get you to the point where you don't cry right away. And I said they're putting you under a lot of stress and pressure, and giving you orders at the same time. And they need for you to get that anxiety and block it out and focus on the job or the task or the order they have given you, and to be able to complete that in whatever time they give you. And I remember we were trained in basic training before we got our M16s. They were M14s. And you had to tear those down and build them back up within, I don't know, I can't remember, it was 90 seconds or 2 minutes. And then they put a blindfold on you, and you had to do the same thing. Well, you have done it so many times that your tactile responses to the memory parts of your brain, you know exactly what part it is just by feel. Because if you're in a firefight someplace and it's nighttime, you're not going to turn on your flashlight to try to put your weapon back together. So there's a purpose for everything they do.
Right, and at this point, we do have to do a short station break,
Yes,
and
sir.
we'll be right back with you.
Great.
You are listening to The Bill Moran Show on WVLP LP 103.1 FM and streaming live at WVLP.org or on your TuneIn app. We are broadcasting live from the historic 1 Center Street building in beautiful Valparaiso, Indiana. The Bill Moran Show is underwritten by Recovery Works of Maryville, Indiana. If you or a loved one are struggling with a drug or alcohol problem, please call us at 866-535-4673. Now, back to your host, Bill Moran.
Welcome back with the beautiful Kelly Rosala
Yes,
Oh,
she
my
is.
goodness,
Yes,
stop.
yes.
and the somewhat beautiful Lenny Corso.
No.
Now,
call me
very
that.
beautiful.
You can call me the old codger.
Oh, no, never.
Or as you are called in many circles by your students, Rambo.
Yeah, well, I got Professor Rambo named because of my long 2.5-hour exams. I said, you're brutalizing us just like you were brutalizing the Green Berets. I
That's
said,
right.
well, I didn't waterboard you, did I?
No.
Yeah, we talked to a lot of students of yours, and they appreciate that class.
they love
you know, and so yeah, and why don't you spend some time on how that whole tiger stripe thing came to be?
That became a metaphor. Because I spent, I was physician assistant for 10 years, and then I went into pharmaceutical sales for 20. And then this is my retirement job. I'm starting my 12 years as an adjunct faculty professor at Ivy Tech, teaching advanced human physiology to pre-nursing and nursing students. And after about the second year, maybe third year, I'm always looking at marketing and promoting, and maybe that's why I get involved with these projects. But I started, my class will be one of the toughest classes you're ever going to have in the area of science. And I said there's only 2 classes in science that I felt that would be tougher in mine. They don't have to take them, and that's organic chemistry and physics. So those are both tough classes, tough science classes.
Oh, organic chemistry. God. Yeah. Well, you would have to bring up some negativity.
So and there's a huge volume of material that they're not used to receiving. And I said, in my class, it's about eliminating something in human behavior called procrastination and gaining something else called good time management. And I said, the people who tend to do the best in my class are moms or single moms, because they've learned to eliminate procrastination and get good time management, raising the kids, get them off to school, and now they got to study, they got to do well, and so forth. So I referred to that as the tiger of adversity. And I said, you have to learn to tame that tiger of adversity. My PowerPoint presentation shows a picture of somebody holding on to the tiger's tail. And I said, you're going to get bruised and beat up because that tiger's going to whip you around. But I said, you only lose when you let go of the tiger's tail. And he comes and he goes for your throat. That's when you lose, when you quit. The idea is don't quit. And I tell them in my class, I said, I put in 30 to 40 hours a week, and I'm only paid for about 11 hours in the classroom. But the kids know that I'm there for them. I'm not there for any other reason other than for the kids. And the reason I like being part-time adjunct is I don't have to go to meetings, and I don't have to go and filling out reports and stuff like that, which we do in our usually full-time job. So the kids can come and share a lot of things with me, whether they need tutoring for academic help or some other issues that they need assistance with, which I can refer them out to for various services in Valpo. But at the end, when they leave that final exam, that 5th exam, I started this past year, I put a tiger picture, which is one of my favorite. It says, you never know how strong you are until being strong is your only choice. And at the bottom of that certificate, it says, congratulations on earning your tiger stripes. And it gives the month and day, and it says Professor Rambo on it.
Oh,
Somebody gave me that
lovely.
many years ago. So I started that. On my social media page, Facebook page, the Tiger alumni, because you're a Tiger Cub in my class, and then you become a Tiger alumni. And the Tiger alumni saw that I was giving these out, and they said, we didn't get one of those. So I said, well, if you can remember the semester and the year you had me, I said, I'll print one up for you and just come and pick it up.
Aw, that's great.
Yeah, but I don't think those are the only people who refer to you as Rambo. I remember interviewing this fellow Green Beret of yours who was in Special Forces.
Yes.
Who actually saw the worst of the worst action in Vietnam. And he refers to you as Rambo. So, I mean, Lenny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
He earned, I think it was 3 or 4 Bronze Stars, multiple Purple Hearts, a couple Air Medals, Army Commendation Medals.
Yeah.
We need to, I know you interviewed him at the Applebee's program, and he's somebody maybe in October that I'd like to organize to get him on your show.
Oh, we'd love
Oh,
that.
definitely.
Yeah, him and a couple other people. I have a
Yeah.
B-52 pilot and a F-4 Phantom pilot that I'd like to get on your show also, who flew missions in Vietnam.
Yeah, that
We'd
would
love
be
that.
we'd love it to share their story, and when just sitting through some of those stories that we heard, and it came from guys who were on battleships waiting for action to his story, which oh my gosh, he saw some definite firefights,
Yep.
and to the point where he said his mission was to get all of his guys out alive,
Yep.
and sometimes that happened, and sometimes it didn't, and to hear those stories firsthand from him was just it's just grueling.
And he was
hear
awarded.
everything they went through.
I know there was a tribal leader whose daughter was kidnapped, and God only knows what the Viet Cong or North Vietnamese were going to do to her. And he found out about it. And he took his guys out on patrol, and let's just say he took the bad guys out and brought the girl back home safe and sound.
Wow.
And the tribal leader went to the president of Cambodia, and the president of Cambodia gave him a special pin, which he wore when he was a guest speaker at our Veterans Appreciation Program 2 years ago.
But here, you'd think that some of these guys who made it back alive, they're all good and nothing happened. Well, he was exposed to Agent Orange and
Yes.
is experiencing some health deficits because of that still today. And so, we just have to honor that. Everything that we enjoyed back here, he was out, literally getting brutalized in the dirt in Vietnam, and it's just something to sit back and it makes you more appreciative just sitting and listening to these guys.
It is.
And as like I said, as I was at home playing baseball and enjoying baseball with my friends, these guys were going through it, and we'll do that again next fall when we get these guys together at Applebee's again.
Such an honor for us to be there.
Yeah, it was.
It
And
was.
Thank
they,
you for.
they enjoyed it too. They enjoyed it too. Some were reluctant when I approached them. They didn't want to talk, and that's good. I respect that. And some people, it's a debriefing for them. It's somewhat cathartic to be able to get that somebody wants to listen to them.
Right.
Excuse me. And I know the gentleman we're talking about that. I know his wife said that he never really opened up to her because he never felt she could understand. And yet when he and I talked, he just opened up and let it all hang out. And because he knew I could understand
That's
that.
right.
Yeah, one of them had not told his story till that day, and he just didn't want to, and didn't have a reason to, and I could understand that. Why put yourself mentally through all that again? But it's something that I hope when people heard that they began more appreciative, because those of us even now we're like 2 steps removed from what's going on in Afghanistan and Iraq, and it makes you appreciate what service folks really do go through on our behalf.
It's something that I've noticed, and something that I do on my social media page is that people die on these missions, and they are either not mentioned on mainstream media news, or it's a 15-second blurb. And I have just posted the folded flag, the white gloves on that folded flag, and I indicated whoever's been lost. And if I can find something online, but I usually wait 2 or 3 days so they're identified. Usually because I'm a member of the Green Beret Foundation, and I get their links, and usually they're identified, or the Military Times. Then I will post that on that right underneath the flag, just so it's folks. While you were doing your thing yesterday, these people lost their lives. Whether it's
For
just
us.
For
us.
You need to understand that a lot of people don't understand this, is that more lives are lost in training accidents than there are than actual combat. But you have to train day in and day out. And this is, there's been a couple of helicopter accidents, and with their training out in, I can't remember if it was New Mexico or Arizona, they're doing nighttime maneuvers. Anything you do at nighttime with little or no light,
stuff.
because you can't have your lights on when you're going into a combat area. And I don't know if it was sand that got into some of the mechanical parts, or if two helicopters bumped into each other, the rotor blades. but people died. And it happens. It happens. And I know when you're going to Halo School, which is high altitude, low opening jumps, and you do those night jumps, and you're held down. Those are the roughest ones when you have usually about 60, 80 pounds worth of equipment on you. I mean, you just kind of waddle up to the back end of that C-130 or whatever plane you're on and kind of fall out. And they do these night jumps, but you have to do these night jumps and train for them in case you ever have to really do them.
You might have
and
to.
there's a risk to doing night jumps.
Yeah. Well, again, let's hold this up and put some
positivity. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, it's all positive.
And you never know these recruits that are going in to the various branches of service that what they're going to do. It's an unknown for them. And they know they signed on the dotted line. They know what branch of the service they're going into. But
where it goes from there, they don't know.
Yeah, and I tell this to the recruits when I was talking to them. I said, I just want to let you know that I said the 3 years that I served in the military from 1966 to 69, I owe everything that I have today because of the military. I needed maturity. The 3 years in the military gave me the maturity. I wanted to go on for more education. My parents were not in a financial position to help me go to college. And so the GI Bill paid for 5 of my 7 years of college. And I developed an awful lot of confidence. I developed good time management. I eliminated procrastination. And all of a sudden, college was easy. And I tell my students, did I get a brain transplant in the 3 years I was in the military? No, it was just my thought process became different. And I would not have met my lovely wife, 45 years, if I had not gone in the military, because I met her. She was a senior. I was a senior. I'm about 4.5 years older than she is. And we met at Indiana State University upon the last semester that we were going to be there. And, again, that worked out well. And so, everything that the 3 years of toughening me up, so to speak, which will happen to these recruits, changed my entire life. And they don't know it, and it's the unpredictability of what's going to happen in the future. It's anxiety producing, but a lot of good things come out of serving time in the military.
Absolutely.
And you can make it, you can have a regular job, just like you would have in civilian life. And I pointed this out to the recruits. The military trains you extremely well. Extremely well. And I think one of the things I enjoyed was when I went to college, I wasn't ready to take English and history and music appreciation, art appreciation, and philosophy and all this other stuff. I just had an interest in science and health science specifically, and then medical science and anatomy and physiology. When I went into the military and I went to Fort Sam Houston, Texas, that's all I studied was everything that was going to be applicable to being a good medic. And then when I went to Special Forces Green Beret training, then it was even more intense and more in-depth. I loved it. I was like a sponge. And I carried that with me out in civilian life when I went back to school. And, I'm just looking around, all these kids, well, there's a test on Monday, but they're talking about partying over the weekend. I said, I'll be studying and I'll blow the curve for you. and it was a lot more fun to be the big fish in the small pond,
Absolutely.
only because of maturity and your focus and eliminating procrastination and getting good time management.
Right.
Let's talk about the dinner for the veterans. It will take place in the fall.
Okay, great. Thank you. We will start promoting that. Our preliminary meeting with the Veterans Appreciation Committee will meet in August, probably late August, and we will have everything ready to rock and roll, tickets, posters, and everything, as soon as Popcorn Festival is completed. And hope to be back on your show and maybe bring some of the other people, a couple of people that from Rotary that will be taking the lead, getting them in, and bringing in some of the veterans to talk about their stories. But the program will be on Wednesday night, November the 7th, from 5:30 to 8:30 at the Old Town Banquet Center. And I have to say that they do a great job. Wendy over there and her crew, whatever you want, they make it happen, and they are a delight to work with. And I can't plug their facility enough. I know a lot of people now hold their wedding banquets there. and great food. They do a great job with cooking their own food there. So, and they did a wonderful job for us for
Yes,
the
they
Veterans
did.
Appreciation Dinner.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
good. It was
And I
really
know
good.
our listeners, we will make sure that we have all this information up on the Bill Moran Show site on Facebook and everything. So if you want to know more about the Salute to the Recruits and the Veterans Dinner, when we
Yes.
know more about that and have all the information, we will make sure to put that up there for you.
And I want to compliment the First Source Bank. First Source Bank has been wonderful to us, and they've worked well not only with the Kiwanis organization, but they work well with the veterans groups. And being a ticket distribution site has been very, very helpful to us, because if you don't know a Rotarian or a Kiwanian to buy the tickets from, you can go to the First Source Bank and get your tickets there. And that's very convenient. And they've been very gracious in allowing us to use their facilities.
Great. Lenny, I know you have someplace to be.
Yes, I do. I have another commitment here in about 10 minutes. So.
All right, we're going to go ahead and let you go, and we'll just
Thank
talk
you very
about some
much.
events coming up. And listen, I can't tell you how much we appreciate, how the community appreciates everything you do, and the veterans. My gosh, the stuff that you put together for them, this as well as the dinner is phenomenal.
Well, I've carried over, it's kind of like when you're growing up, you say, I will never be like that, or I will never do that. And I've kind of made that commitment that the way things were for me back in the 60s, I'm trying to change that for the newer generation, the younger generation, and just making it better, not only for the recruits that we're going to have, but for the veterans in general, because when I came out of the service, there was such an anti-war feeling, and we just want to change that and make it a positive venture for all the vets and the recruits. So, Bill and Callie, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you
you.
so much for being on.
My
We
pleasure.
really
Honored to have
appreciate
you
it.
on.
Thank you again.
Always is.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. And with that, just have safe driving to wherever you're going. I know.
I will.
Yeah,
I'm going back to the Kiwanis Club meeting and promoting the Salute to the Recruits.
And when you see your wife, give her a hug for us.
I will.
we
Thank
wish
you.
her the best, and
Yeah.
she's in our prayers.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
she had some knee work done, and
Yep.
so we're sending good wishes out that
Well, it's
way.
amazing. We're under an hour.
Oh my gosh.
I know some people out there. Hold it.
Those
It's Lenny?
people that say
Yeah.
that I'm
What?
not known for my brevity, you tell them
What?
that I can cut it short.
Yeah, he did a good job today.
He did.
Yeah, he did. Oh, thanks, Lenny. Appreciate
you
it.
so
All right.
much.
Thank you, Bill.
And,
Thank you, Callie.
You're welcome.
And with that, we'll talk about some things happening other things happening, and wish you a great rest of the week and great weekend. It's
Okay,
gonna be
thank you.
Thanks.
All right,
Great
you take
Memorial
care.
Day weekend.
Too.
All right, so we have some things that we're.
Do we do?
Yeah, one thing tonight we're going to be at Wild Rose
Oh,
Brewery.
that's true.
And we have the owners from the Wild Bird Unlimited. Is that the name of the?
Well, they're not on tonight, but
Okay, all right,
Right.
So
But we're
they're on
gonna-
tomorrow at SIP.
no, we haven't talked to them and
Oh.
finalized anything yet with them.
So we haven't.
Nice
but
try.
They may not. Okay.
Nice try.
All right.
We will be having them on sometime soon.
All right. Yep, we will have them on soon.
Yes, Wild Birds
so,
Unlimited.
so we will be at Wild Rose Brewery tonight, and then tomorrow at SIP.
Yes.
And then coming up here in about 8 minutes, we'll have Sheriff Reynolds joining us on Recovery Radio, and Megan Johnson is in the house, and been a little bit. She's got a little laryngitis, but we're going to help her through it. So, yeah, she sounds like the Godfather right now. But so,
And there is another event, though, that is coming up, and I wanted to talk about that real quick. It's the Paladin Talent Show, which is going to be at the Lakeview Christian Center on the 8th of June from 5 to 9 p.m., and that is at 1704 County Line Road in Michigan City. Paladin is a organization that advocates for people with disabilities in Northwest Indiana, and so this is a great way to go out there and support them, help them raise some money, and see some fun talent and everything. It's $4 in advance, $5 at the door, and you can get tickets at events@paladin.care or calling 219-874-4288, extension 302.
and my heart is especially with them, just not because of the work that they do.
That's right.
But one of the people that works for them
Is the very beautiful Kelly Moran.
Yeah, and so she's a great. Gosh, heart goes out to her. Just not being my daughter, but the work she does there.
Absolutely.
So adults with disabilities, and she's kind of their guide.
A bit of an
and
advocate and a
advocate,
guide and a helper and
mhm.
everything. She's amazing, and
Yeah,
it's a great
which-
organization. the
Which, if you know
Paladin.
Kelly, that's right along her line.
is.
She's just got a beautiful heart.
Yes, she does.
And so, what I think we'll do is go ahead and close out the show and let you listen to some music for about 5 minutes, waiting for our guests
Sounds
to
great.
show up. And with that, I'll go ahead and close out the show, and we'll be talking to you shortly.
You have been listening to The Bill Moran Show on WVLP LP 103.1 FM and streaming live at WVLP.org or on your TuneIn app. Broadcast live from the historic 1 Center Street building in beautiful Valparaiso, Indiana. The Bill Moran Show is underwritten by Recovery Works of Maryville, Indiana. If you or a loved one are struggling with a drug or alcohol problem, please call us at 866-535-4673. This show will be rebroadcast on Saturday at 4 o'clock p.m. on WVLP. The Bill Moran Show podcast is available on iTunes and YouTube. Have a wonderful week. Bye for now.
was, in addition to the substance abuse problems and how it impacts public safety and a lot of different avenues. The other point that was brought up is the impact that mental health has really hurt or impacted all of the sheriffs. And when you hear it from the smaller sheriffs that they have to be called at 2 o'clock in the morning, and some of these sheriffs in the small counties are actually working on patrol, and they have to transport these court-ordered people that have substance abuse problems, but also mental health issues. And that's one of the things, the mantras that we're trying to get to the legislators. And we had 7 legislators from these counties there yesterday. So we were talking to them about the issues. They passed legislation, but they need to understand some of the legislation, how it impacts us on a daily basis. So that was really, I thought that was really powerful, that they had the opportunity to hear firsthand from the sheriffs and all the different sheriffs saying the same thing, but from their county. We're very fortunate that some of the counties have overcrowded problems in their county jails, and I hate to really don't want to publicize this, but our jail population actually is going down, and it has for the last 5 or 6 months, and we attribute that to the fact that of all the programs that we have. We think we're starting to reap the rewards from the programs, but also that we have, and one of the programs we have is an IRAS program, and they asked us about that yesterday. And IRAS is that we have a person that interviews every person in custody, and if that person feels that that person arrested qualifies to get out of jail, nonviolent, then we get them out. And it's really helped us quite a bit. And we also talked about the Vivitrol program, which you alluded to. And it's still in a kind of infancy a little bit. We had a couple ups and downs at the beginning, which we anticipated. But I think now we've established the program, and we have established the team that interviews these and basically profiles the inmates. And just so for your audience to understand what I'm talking about, is that if you're addicted to heroin and you're in our jail on a nonviolent offense and you're going to have a chance to get out, if you qualify for the Vivitrol program, we will give you a shot, which is an opiate block. So you can't, if you took heroin with this Vivitrol, you cannot feel any of the effects of heroin. You could still overdose if you took too much of it, but we're seeing that I think we're optimistically encouraged that it's not the total answer.
Yeah, I was gonna say it. I think paired with a lot of other services like case management and other support services, I guess I think it is working, and we've seen in other counties or other places as well that it's working as well.
And it's one thing people need to understand too, it's court ordered, and not every county is doing it with a court ordered umbrella, and we believe it has to be court ordered. And the underlying I think objective here is not the Vivitrol and the opiate block, it's the mandate of treatment. That we're mandating treatment through a court-ordered and that's the only way you can do it, because if you allow these heroin users just give them the choice, they're not going to do it. But if it's court-ordered, they don't want to go back to jail, and if they get the treatment, even though it's kind of forced. Then the light bulb will eventually go on, and they'll reach that the goal of recovery, and where they can actually turn. And then we have some success stories. I mean, our second heroin video that we did, we've shown it to over 4,000 middle school kids and students in the last 2 months. Almost every middle school kid we've shown this to, and one of the guys that goes with me and he's been here, is Herb Steverson,
And he's watching right now.
Yeah, good. And Herb does it. Herb is, I tell everybody, I'm Herb's biggest fan. Herb does I know they don't come to hear me, and when we're done, they don't ask me any questions. They always ask Herb questions about his son and his recovery. But he is so impactful and powerful in his presentation that we just did, I think 2 days ago, we were at St. Paul's. But we've done all of the middle schools in Valpo, Portage, Wheeler, and I think we were in Couts and Morgan. We got a few left. But so to answer your question, it's, as you know, this addiction doesn't have an easy answer to any of it. But I think we're attacking it from a lot of different directions, and I'm more encouraged about what I'm seeing than not encouraged. And I haven't even talked about the law enforcement part, because we attack this thing in a three-prong attack. We attack it: law enforcement, treatment, as we're talking about, and education. And what we've done on the law enforcement side is really unprecedented. We're working together, all 5 counties that are involved in this northern part of the state all work together, trying to identify not users but dealers. And we've had some great success in the last 3 or 4 months, only because we're working together. And it's
Yeah, Dave, in fact, if you want to tell the listeners out there, when we talked about this in the past, there was a lot of work going into this on the front end, getting all the stakeholders involved in courts, prosecuting offices, and so on. And there was a lot of that, and probably it's a lot to tell about the success of the program.
Oh, you're talking about with Vivitrol?
Vivitrol, yes.
Without question. And I think it just says a lot about Porter County. I mean, we're real lucky, and I'm just very fortunate to be here and being sheriff of this county. I mean, these other sheriffs, like yesterday, they're all my good friends, and they all have their stories to tell and their issues, but they don't have the programs we have, and they don't have the cooperation that we have from not only the courts but the school systems. I have 7 superintendents, and I work well with every one of them, and I work, and we have all of our judges work. The judges had to buy into this program, or it wouldn't work. Yeah. And I think you understand that.
Yeah, absolutely.
If the judges didn't believe in what we were saying, Pact, Tammy O'Neill, Jay Berkey's done a great job, but everybody gets together, and they're not in their little silos. Okay, so we're all having the same objective of what we're really trying to accomplish here, and it was a learning process at the beginning, because we had to identify the right, not high risk, but maybe medium to low risk offender. And I think what we did was we used some people that were maybe a little bit too high risk, and now we've learned, and we have, unfortunately, we have a lot to pick from in our jail, but they're seeing the results. So the word gets out when Herb Steverson gets out, and he does a good job in his recovery. All of these, there's a lot of people in these halfway houses that know about Herb Steverson. They know that you can make it. You can have a productive life, but you have to make those decisions on your own.
Yeah.
And then when you do, and Herb says this, he has a lot of support. I mean, we'd say that in our graduations in the jail, that you have a lot of people supporting you, but you, as an inmate, you need to make those decisions on your own. Because we can only kind of set it up, but you have to do it. And we're seeing it's none of these programs are a panacea. They're not 100% successful, but the percentages are very good compared to what happens if you don't. Because we know if you don't go to any program, it's 75% chance to 80% chance you're coming back. So that's pretty high. And we know from our God Pod to some of these intense our therapeutic community program, the percentage is like 25 to 30%. So that's pretty good, you know.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Sheriff's Association in the state of Indiana. You guys are working collectively, talking to the legislature about how we can get a curb on this thing. Getting back to Porter County, so there's the Vivitrol program, and then the educational programs within, and Megan gets involved in a lot of those. Can you speak to that? Some of the educational programs. So one of the things I think a lot of people have the stigma of it's once you get in jail, you're done. It's going to get worse, but that's not true in Porter County. And you're almost trying to mentor these people back to a life that is productive. And so, can you speak to some of the educational programs that are implemented?
Absolutely, and I think a lot of it is it goes back to the people that we have in place in our county. This is no disrespect to the other sheriffs, but some sheriffs just don't have the time, they don't have the support, and they don't have the belief that it's their job to do anything with these the inmates that they have in our jail. But people need to understand there's a difference between jail and prison. We're like a holding facility. Sometimes you can do your 6 months to a year in our jail and get out. Other times where you're there and in the process of going through your charges through the court, you could end up in prison. The ones that are like violent offenders that are going to go to prison, we don't really put them in our program because we don't see the effectiveness and as far as our use of our time and our resources. But most of their inmates are only in there for 6 months to a year. So what we've done, we've made the decision that if we have them for 6 months to a year, this is the best opportunity to do something. So we've actually in the last 6 months we've really upgraded all our technology. Went to a couple of different systems and vendors, and now we have tablets. We have tablets in our jail. We have tablets free education for GED. So a lot of people don't know this, but if you want to get a GED, there's really no excuse that you can't get it now. Now, before they were charging us for the test, and it was a problem a little bit. But now you can study all day long, and when you're ready for the test, we can give you a pre-test, and we know you're ready. Then we'll pay for the test, and then and our success on that is shot up the roof because now if you really want it, this program we have on your tablets, which is free to them. So we give them the tablets and they study.
Wow.
But one of the other probably I alluded to a couple of these is our the therapeutic community program. It's a high intense program of I think 12 weeks, and they live together. So you have to be interviewed to get in the program. We know you're not going to get out, and if you qualify. The success rate we're having with them is like I said, I think we looked at the first 100 people in our program, and only 31 of them have been rearrested that got out. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And our God Pod is something. I call it the God Pod, but we have ministers that come in non-denominational every day. They study the Bible, they study financing, they study life principles, and we have a frontline that comes in, and the recidivism for them is even better because when you get out from that program, you go to a halfway house that the church owns south of here, and so it's really closely monitored. Try to get them a job, and we know this works because these guys are making it. I mean, the percentage is even lower. So you have an 85, 82, 3% chance of making it if you go through this program. So to answer your question, we looked at the percentage. It's probably 75% of the inmates in our jail are in some kind of program. So that says a lot for, I think, the philosophy of the sheriff's office. But it's not just us. it's like yourself, Pat coming in there, the caring place. We expanded a program. For years, we had a program for females of victims of domestic violence, or they were in there for domestic violence. And for years, we dealt with the females. Well, then about a year and a half ago, we expanded that to domestic violence classes for men, and it's been unbelievable. The biggest criticism we received at the beginning from the inmates was it wasn't long enough. So we started at 4 weeks, we went to 6, and now we're going to 8. So that tells me they like the program. But you think about it. These are the issues, the social issues that we have in our county that we're really trying to address with the people that need it.
Right, and I know you have a very good working relationship with the Caring Place. And by the way, do you know, and probably you don't, but how they're doing on their campaign?
Well, I do know, and I really can't tell you, but I will tell
it's
you
confidential.
This. I will tell you this: they're doing real well.
Good.
And I think they're gonna give out some good news real soon. And I'm telling you, my hat's off to those ladies. They work hard. They've been working hard trying to get that money through donations. And they had a lot of money that the initial cost was almost, to me, unsurmountable. And they're doing good. But they're working hard. They're out every day doing look and sees and talking to different people. But I think once you see what they're doing and what they're going to have when this is all done, will be just a tremendous asset for Porter County and the victims of domestic violence in Porter County.
Yeah, because that is the second largest problem, still behind drug abuse in Porter County.
No question about
it. And it's and the facility that they are in currently is problematic. 100-year-old house, piping failure, electrical failure, and I think 27 beds at this point.
One working bathroom, I think, last I heard. I mean, it's tough.
Wow. And now keep in mind, for those of you out there, this is just not a housing for the females or males, but it is their children. They have to house the children because they're at risk as well and are a part of domestic violence. They're being abused, and so we have to get them out of harm's way. So 27 beds for the mothers and for the children, and in a 100-year-old house. So that kind of focuses in, and I know the Noontime Kiwanis has been extremely active in helping them. And the person that we had in here, Lenny, in fact, I was talking to Mary Beth, inviting her on the show months ago, and we were talking about Lenny, and she goes, "Oh, well, guess who's walking up the step right now?"
Right.
And so he's been very active in that regard, and so that's something that there's educational classes in the jail, and then also at the Caring Place they have classes. And so as we move on from there, I mean, again, we have drug abuse and domestic violence indicating a pattern of mental health issues that are just severe, and you could walk that line all the way through. Another problem that we're having, and I think in Porter County we've been lucky that we haven't had a school shooting. We've had a lot of ancillary things happen after the shootings, but I wanted to spend some time with you on that as well, because you have kind of revolutionized the program that it gets everyone on the same page. And if you could spend some time talking about that and the One Protocol program.
Sure. Yeah, we've worked on it for 3 years. It started off with the 7 school districts asking me to streamline all their safe school policies, and we thought, well, that should be easy. Well, then when we started getting all these policies, I realized that we have 77 schools in the county, and every school has their own safe school policy, and it was almost overwhelming how voluminous it all was, and to try to go through all of that. And then what we ended up doing was we reduced all of this to one page. And we took the what we thought was the most important parts of school safety on a page, and we made it into a poster. And then with the support of the superintendents, they agreed to it. Why we were doing this, we and I've been very adamant trying to get the state now involved in an alert system. And one of the most important things for law enforcement and involving a school shooting is to get there as quick as possible. And yesterday I even explained it to the legislators and all the sheriffs when they asked me about the same thing, is that we have broken this down to like a three-part in a shooting. If you have a shooting in a school, the first thing you have is reporting time. So the person has to call 911 the way it is now. And sometimes it takes seconds. It's more than just picking up a phone and dial 911. You think that's simple. But if somebody's shooting, probably the last thing in your mind is thinking about, well, I'm going to stop and dial 911. No, you're going to be running or hiding, and you're going to try to get out of harm's way. So seconds go by before there's an actual report. Even with the shooting in Texas, I submit that the guy that got shot, we don't even know when he responded to the shooting. Maybe he didn't even call 911 because he went to the shooting. The guy's shooting down the hall. He went where the threat was, and so the reporting time is extended. So when the call actually gets to 911, now think about this. You're the 911 operator. Somebody calls you, and somebody is frantic, and says, "Oh my gosh, there's a shooting, da 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 da." And the lady, our 911 our dispatchers are very professional, but they're not mind readers. They're going to try to figure out who's calling, what they're saying, calm them down. All of this is more time. So this is the actual dispatch time. So then you have a dispatch time, you have a reporting time, and all of this could go into minutes. Minutes. And then the ultimate, what we try to reduce is the response time. The response time is when you actually then notify the police that we have a shooting, where it's at, and what you know about it. Well, once you notify that we have a shooting in this county, the officers are coming. But it doesn't negate the fact that we have a reporting time, a dispatch time. It could be minutes and seconds, or seconds to minutes. Which are all important, because you think about it. If it's 30 or 40 seconds more, if somebody's shooting, how many people can you shoot in 30 or 40 seconds? Quite a few. Well, what we've come up with is an alert system. It's called School Guard. That it's free to all the teachers. We paid for it. The county paid for half of the schools. The city of Valpo paid for the other half. So about 70-some thousand. And it covers all the public, private schools throughout the whole county, all 7 school districts. We did the Boys and Girls Club. We've done YMCA's, the Hilltop Daycare Center. We've done a few daycare. And what this does, if there's a shooting, then all the teachers have to do is push a button on their app. They can hit their app. They don't have to worry about calling 911. They just push this button. The button will automatically call 911. Okay, so you'll get 911 by just pushing a button, but you also notify on-duty, off-duty police, state, federal, local. In this area, we have 700 officers and state agents and federal agents that have downloaded our side, which is a free app. It's called Hero 911. So think about this. You pushed a button, you've notified every police officer, and when I get the notification, I look at my phone. It tells me exactly the location of the shooting. It tells me that there is a reported shooting, and it tells me actually where in the school they activated the alarm. So I know exactly where I got to go. And that is what we're trying to get through to Homeland Security and the governor's office, because they've got $10 million that they just appropriated for school safety. But they're not real sure right now how they're going to spend it. What we're saying is this might be this is what you, if you really want to do something, this is an app, a concrete piece of avenue that you can look at. And so then that's why, while we're going with the poster, we were doing this at the same time. Because on our poster, it says, active shooter, top left corner. Here's what you do in like 6 bullet points. First, activate school guard. Boop. So those teachers know what they need to do. And it'll tell you all these other emergency things and procedures, lockdown, lockout. And the other thing that we did during this same period is that we produced a video. It's called One County, One Protocol, for a training video. It's about 17 minutes for high school students and staff and teachers. So they can watch this video, and we go through all of these live scenarios and a video to make them a little more acclimated and a little bit more comfortable and confident on if something like this happened, what you should do. Because I think if you look at all of these shootings, there's a lot of common denominators. 2 weeks ago, we had the foremost expert at Ivy Tech. We brought him in. His name is Phil Chalmers. Talked about bullying, talked about violent video games. And we also brought in Frank DeAngelis, who's the principal at Columbine. So he was the principal in 1999 when there was the shooting. And they also talked about school guard. Because they know one of the first things that the school system should do, obviously, is have a SRO in your program or in your school, but also have an alert system so they can notify the police. So there's a lot of things that we're doing that I think are proactive. It's probably not the answer for everything, but it's definitely I think a step in the right direction to keep our schools safe.
Yeah, definitely. And because one of the things that they talked about during the Florida shooting is that people are trying to whisper into their phones calling 911, which that's problematic. I mean, the shooter, if he hears a noise coming from a classroom, more likely he's going to be drawn to that classroom. And so this is the total silence app that gives them the location and further shortens that time between 911 communicating it to dispatch, and furthermore it goes directly to the phones of the first responders. Right. So, I mean, that seems, and we talked about that. I think that, we were kind of worried about the amount of money that the state was going to allocate to this. And, with the amount of school districts we have in the state of Indiana, it's kind of difficult to, $10 million only goes so far. And we've talked about it would be nice to have additional resource officers, but that's money. That's a lot. That's salary. And so this does seem an appropriate expenditure to at least get that response time down. Right. That's great. And now the video that you alluded to, that's not only available to the teachers, administrators, but it's available on YouTube as well. So if a parent wanted to see what's going on and how, maybe sit at home with their kids and did you know this? And so they can go to YouTube and do a search for One County, One Protocol.
Right. Just go Porter County Sheriff, YouTube, Porter County Sheriff videos. You get part 1 on our heroin video, part 2, and you get One County, One Protocols right there. You got to love technology.
Yeah, yeah. And let's see here. We just have a visitor stop in. How you doing?
Pretty good.
And this tip 411. Go ahead.
Yes, that's a nationwide program. I copied that right off of the Valparaiso Police Department. And it's a person sees anything, they could text. They don't have to say a word. It goes to this national organization. Within 3 minutes, it goes to the local law enforcement. Cool. Anywhere in the country, just type in the city you're in and do it. And it's a great tool.
Is this guy safe, Sheriff?
Yeah, I think so.
Can you introduce yourself? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm Joe Kushak, Veterans Program, Thursday morning, and I brought a couple of suggestions to help our community to the sheriff. We have a judicial commission in the county, and I had 2 ideas. One is already in existence, which is sobriety checks. Can we expand that to checking for narcotics or weapons? we'd have to pass it through legislation and all that. But this is the way they authorizes you, just stop. They show they got proper identification. And it's a reason, just like the trafficking that goes back and forth from Chicago. This seemed a way of approaching that legally. That's for your suggestion.
Thank you. A couple of things I wanted before you, because I know you're busy. I appreciate you being here. Is that, boy, trying to get in touch with you is challenging, but I'm just a radio guy. But it's interesting because every time I text you or whatnot, and I read in the newspaper, you see a post, I said, okay, I guess I'm not going to get a call back from Dave. So I understand that. I appreciate it. But people need to appreciate what Sheriff Reynolds, this is a big county, and there's a lot of needs. And one of the things that I want to talk to you about today, one thing is I want to kind of roll out today is that we're going to, out of our show, we're going to hand over a day out of the month to you so that you can continue to talk about these programs, because a lot of people don't understand a lot of the departments within the Sheriff's Department. One that we have not talked about is the K-9 unit. Which is a very integral part of the Sheriff's Department. Do you want to explain to us how many K-9 officers there are in the county and what their responsibilities are?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. We have we have a unique K-9 program. We have we have Bumpus. I'm sure you heard of Bumpus. He's our Hanover Hound that. There's only one or two in the state, and there's only a few of them in the country. He's not really a hound dog, and he's bred not for show, but he's bred to track. And he's, 1,000 years old in this breed. He came out of Poland, and he was trained in South America, and wow. He was somewhat expensive. But what do you put a price tag on? A year ago at this time, we had 2 missing children over in Washington Township, and we used him to locate these 2 kids. And so, we're real proud of that, and he's part of the program. We have 3 multi-trained dogs that track, they bite. And they also are trained to detect drugs. And then we have one he's basically a drug dog. And so we have 5 dogs, 5 handlers. When you get these guys on the show here, you're going to see just a lot of commitment and dedication, because it's just so much more than what everybody's doing every day. I mean, they come to work and they do their police job and they respond to calls, but they also have the dog. So it's just like it's something that they have to deal with every day, and you have to be a special person to deal with to be a dog handler. But what a tremendous benefit is for the county in a lot of ways. I mean, we know that those dogs help keep our officers safe in a lot of respects, but they're also trying to keep our county safe too. They all do drugs except for Bumpus. Bumpus apparently can't do. He can't find drugs.
Let's clarify that they don't do drugs. They track dogs.
He tracks drugs. Okay. But what he does is track people.
Our dog does drugs. I'm convinced of it, but we won't talk about that.
But I'm very proud of our program and proud of the officers that have that. That were committed to the program, and when we do that, probably our next show we can bring we'll bring the person who's in charge, and since it's a radio show, they probably won't bring the dogs. But
oh no, we're Facebook Live. We'd love to have the dogs.
Well, then
we'd love to have.
I'll bring Bumpus in.
Okay, there you go. I think we can. 2 or 3, whatever they can bring in. I'll make sure it's okay with the radio station. But actually, Wolf Fredersen brings his dog in, so
These are the most highly trained dogs in the county.
Yes.
Come on.
Yeah. In fact, just not the. We keep on hearing about them, so we'd love to have them.
And they're kids' magnet. I brought him to Memorial School last week. The week before, I was at Cook's Corner. So when you come in there, we're kindergarten, first grade. I mean, these kids, and the dog loves the kids too. So they definitely steal when Bumpus shows up and these canines, they steal the show. These kids they love the dogs.
Now, I'm not sure about the state of Indiana. I know there's been moves to protect these dogs because, I mean, they are an officer, right?
Yes.
And so are they guarded by the same
Absolutely.
statutes that an officer
Yep.
is?
Yep.
So people need to know if they want to shoot at one of these canines, even though they're not human, they will suffer the same consequences.
I mean, they don't raise their paw, but they're deputized. So if you go after the dog, it's like going after a policeman. They're a handler.
That's good to know. And a lot of these are meant for the safety of the officer because they can. Boy, I've seen a lot of these German Shepherds, and the other one I can't think of. It looks like a German Shepherd, but their response time is. I mean, that's what they're bred for. And so if they're dealing with a perp that has a gun or whatever, they can respond and take the deputy out of harm's way. But unfortunately, they put themselves in harm's way. So
Yes.
that's be another. Now another one of the departments, which interesting enough, because this department gets called upon by other counties, is your bomb squad.
That's there's another unique. They started this several years ago, even before I became sheriff, and we've continued it. We're federally funded, our bomb squad. We're the only game in town, so to speak. We service 7 counties.
Yeah.
So if there's if just recently, maybe a year ago, they had the bombing at the post office in East Chicago. We were there for that one, and but we get a lot of calls, and it's not like firework related. It's like somebody found a hand grenade, or somebody found, or you get these kids now they're trying to put bombs together for whatever reason, and that's the things that we come to, we respond to. We've done a really good job of educating the schools on bomb threats. We're very fortunate, and I probably shouldn't bring it up. We don't have a lot of bomb threats, but they don't actually respond to bomb threats. What they do is they respond. They'll respond, but when they go into action is when you find the bomb. We've educated the schools on a bomb threat is to check your area. So if every teacher checks their area, then the time we get there, we'll have a pretty good idea if there's anything suspicious. But again, these are guys that are dedicated, well trained. I think we've got a couple guys from Lake County. We have an officer from Porter, and we have 3 ourselves. And we have Captain Sheets who's in charge, and they just do a tremendous job. And it's the same thing as the dogs. They're dedicated and committed, and they have to be a little bit goofy to deal with bombs every day. You know what I'm saying? But,
yeah.
But we're lucky. We're very fortunate to have these guys.
Yeah, and I recall there when they arrested that individual and indicted him. They had a lineup including the U.S. Attorney's Office, FBI, and you saw Porter County badges standing right up there along with all these federal agents. So it's interesting that we can provide those resources to other counties. Which and now the other one, which I kind of nicknamed them, and I can't put their nickname on the air. It begins with bad, but it's the SWAT team.
Right.
And I know a lot of those guys, but it's a very needed resource, especially in hostage situations and difficult situations. And they play also an integral part to school safety as well.
Absolutely. We're very fortunate. We've kind of partnered over the years with Valparaiso, the city. And I think we're up to about 17 officers. 3 or 4 of them are from Valpo right now. The training and the commitment, again, is just unbelievable. What they put themselves through to be physical. They have to be on top of their game at all times, but they have to be physically capable. So they do a lot of training, physical training because if they put all that equipment on, they have to be able to move around and get to the outer perimeter, inner perimeter, and moving back and forth sometimes, and they have to be prepared for that. And so they've set their standards that are very, very high. And if an officer for whatever reason doesn't make the standards, then they're removed from the squad. So and that's how they want it. So we're lucky. I mean, I was when I was the police chief when we actually started the first SWAT team in Portage. So when I came to the county, we started the second one. And we still have a really good working relationship with Portage right now, SWAT team, and they train together, and we work because of our proximity and locations. We often work together too. So we have the availability of having a lot of SWAT guys if we need them. And we also work with District 1. District 1 has an area SWAT team that are very good too. But it's the day. It's unfortunate that we have to use it, but we've been lucky. But they're not called out as much as you think. But that's a good thing too. But like you said, barricaded situations, and mental health, and almost everything we talk about, mental health has a little bit to do with it. And you have a guy who's not doing his medication, and he's threatening his family or his neighbors, and then he has a gun. What are you going to do? In years past, the officer would go in there. Now, we make sure that we're safe. I think we just had one last week, and when we set it all up, when the SWAT, and this happens a lot, when the SWAT team does show up and they're visibly in the area, then the perpetrator, as you said, or the guy, he comes out. He doesn't want anything to do with it. And actually, we had a burglary in Valparaiso about almost 2 months ago now, and we tracked down the information. Well, the guy was this guy pulls up and he burglarizes a house not too far from here by Shamrock. And unfortunately for him, he picked a house that was one of our detectives' next door neighbor. And the wife saw him go in. Okay. Well, when the officer showed up from Valpo, he was a former SWAT guy. He ran the plate, was very familiar with the people that the truck was registered, and a known burglar. Okay, so what he did the right thing, called the SWAT team. So when the SWAT team got in there, we didn't do a lot of negotiation. We just went in because we knew they were burglarizing the house. And when they went in, they found one gave up and one was hiding in the crawl space. So.
Well, one testament to Porter County, I know this because I know some federal guys, the U.S. Marshals and FBI, this is probably bad news in a way for Porter County, but there's been some recruiting up to the federal agencies and U.S. Marshals, which speaks to the training that's done in Porter County. I know of at least 2 that became U.S. Marshals and 1 that became FBI. And boy, I mean, yeah, these guys are people you don't want to mess with in an alley. They definitely aren't. But they still remember their days as Porter County deputies, and but great people. So, am I missing a department?
Well, we've got. I mean, I think what we should do is have somebody oversee what we're doing in the jail. I mean, we've alluded to it, but we can have like Jay Berkey and jail commander come in and talk about the day-to-day operations of the jail. I think it'll be very fascinating. We have an SRO program. Our program is a little different too because we have Union Township. We're taking over East Porter at the end of the year. And we have Boone. So we have 3 school corporations that we run school resource officers. And I think that'd be an interesting topic too, is to have the school resource officers come in from different school districts to tell your listeners the things that they do on a day-to-day basis and what they do to keep the schools safe and some of the concerns and problems that they see. I think that'd be a very interesting subject.
And I think helpful because every time there's a shooting, my gosh, parents and students as well, they just, there's fear. And it's a shame during this time, but I think people need to know that, hey, I mean, Porter County has made some very good inroads into school safety, and the One County, One Protocol is an excellent, make sure that everyone's on the same page. So as patrol cars roll up, that everyone knows what they're to do and how to respond, which is definitely something that needs to be done. I think we've got Jay lined up,
Yeah,
don't we?
he was supposed to be on last week, but,
we had a schedule.
change in
I
in
take
plans,
total
so
responsibility for that.
I think he and Rachel Horner
Yeah.
are going
Oh,
to
good.
come on. And,
Excellent choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So that they were going to be coming out on a recovery rate. Yes?
yeah.
Yeah, I just want to point out that the sheriff's department is as good as the citizens want them to be. You call in, report things. You support the budgets that permit monies to be appropriate in the need for our community to be safe. And I commend Sheriff Reynolds for doing a fine job, and let us know what your needs are. And we as a community and the broadcasters here will endorse and help you
Absolutely.
out in that
I
respect.
think, Dave, I know you don't like receiving compliments very well, but I gotta tell you, this state is very fortunate. It has one of the top sheriffs in the state here in Porter County.
Yeah.
You've led programs with substance abuse, domestic violence, and you've taken them down to the Sheriff's Association and talked to those rascals down there that represent us and try to talk some sense into them. So I can't tell you how much the citizens of this county appreciate your work and the things that you've done to keep us safe, and children all the way up to adults. So hats off to you, Sheriff.
Yeah. I do have a question. I mean, you and your department is very forward thinking, and you are kind of one step ahead of the game. You're trying new things, you're doing new things that, not everyone does. What would you say to another sheriff or another maybe individual or community member that might have their kind of heels stuck in the mud and not willing to kind of try new things or see new possibilities?
Oh yeah, that's a good. That's a good. It's a good question. I've been around law enforcement for longer than most, so I think I always hate the term when people say, "Well, you're old school." Well, if anybody was old school, it'd be me, because I've been doing law enforcement since the '70s, and but I think if you can't stay on top of your game and try to figure out what other people are doing or what your needs are and try to be progressive, then you are going to be old school. And I think old school is not good, because if you're stuck in doing the same thing in any kind of job or any profession, then you're not going to get it, And I think it all boils down to learning, like life experiences. You have to associate with your people that also get it. We're very fortunate to have the interim superintendent like Julie Lauk right now. She's very in tune to school safety. Well, you would be a complete idiot if you didn't try to work with her on everything, because she can make things happen. There are people, you mentioned legislators. You're exactly right. There are some legislators in this state that are total clueless. But we're lucky in Porter County. We've got 4 that I can call, and they always call me back. And this has nothing to do with politics. So I can call Karen Talion, the senator. I can call Senator Charbonneau. I can call Representative Soliday or Representative Chuck Mosley. And they will always call me back, and they will work with us. And I think some sheriffs don't understand. They don't understand that. One of the objectives of this meeting yesterday, there was one in Hendricks County today. The 2 days before, there was one in Vanderburgh. There's going to be 5 of them. And all 92 sheriffs will have some type of round table. Well, one of the objectives is to actually get the sheriffs on the same page. And I think if that happens, it would be a powerful lobbying group that would benefit the legislator. Because if you were a legislator and you called me and said, "Hey, I think I have a bill that I would like to pass that would promote public safety or promote whatever," then the sheriffs can help that. They could help get that passed, that legislation passed, if the sheriffs stuck together. There's 92 elected sheriffs in this state. So think about it. They all got elected. So, I mean, and if they all stick together, it would be very, very, very powerful. And on the reverse side of this, if we called the legislators and said we need help getting something passed, then they know, hey, that you know how it goes in the federal government. It's the lobbying group that gets things done. It's not so much the legislators. They're so afraid of the NRA. Why? Because they have money and they have influence and they have power. But the sheriffs, if they stuck together in the state, and right now it's what we've been doing in the last year and a half, trying to get all of these sheriffs, and they're all good guys too, but they're all dealing with their own county issues. But if we can get them together, which we are, it will help Porter County. I mean, because we know there's some certain things that we'd like to really get passed that would help not only Porter County, but it would help the state too. So,
Yeah.
Well, one thing I wanted to dispel when you brought up the whole old school thing, let me dispel that right away. I remember you were the first county in the state to come up with an app for the sheriff's department, and I've got something comical to tell about that. But I mean, you got notifications, road closures, alerts immediately, and this is like 5 years ago, somewhere?
Since I came back, so over 3.5 years.
3.5 years ago. The one comical thing is the alert, the push alert, was a siren.
Siren, yeah, we changed that. People thought they were getting pulled over.
Well, yours truly
Yeah.
moved over to the side because I'd be driving, and all of a sudden the push alert would come on, and I pulled over to the side of the road. I checked my speedometer and checked to look for the lights, no lights, but still, all kidding aside, it was a great informational app. And still, I live in another county, and we just don't get that information. The closures, the alerts that there's a escapee or something out there that, and so again, another hats off to you for instituting that, and the app that goes to schools. I mean, one of the first in the state to push or help get that instituted. Yes, Joe.
Yeah, I was going to ask the sheriff. We're both going to be at Judge Hensel's Veterans Court, and we're going to witness some amazing things. Can you voice your opinion on the Veterans Court and the new assistant prosecutor who's coming in?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. I know she's having a little retirement party tomorrow, but I hope I can speak at her. She's asked me to speak at every graduation. And I tell you one thing, there's going to be some big shoes to fill when Judge Gent leaves. She's done a tremendous job with the drug court, but the Veterans Court is being recognized throughout the state and the nation. It wasn't 2 years ago, the entire Supreme Court came and sat in the front row at Woodland Park to honor Judge Gent and what she's accomplished. And I think if the schedule permits, the governor's supposed to be at this graduation. And there's not enough time left in your show to tell you.
That's why we're getting your own show.
For me to tell you what I think of Judge Gent. I mean, she has been just a tremendous person, and she's a fair, honest person that does. She works so hard. I know a lot of people wanted to get this job to replace her, and I told some of the candidates, I'm going to tell you right now, if you get it, you have to understand I mean, all of our judges are great, and they all work hard, but that courtroom, that's a busy courtroom.
That's the Portage Court, right?
And that's most of our cases. All the county goes to North County, so she's busy. But to answer the other part of your question is the individual that was selected by the governor to replace her is Mike Drent, who's a prosecutor who was basically our liaison with the drug unit. I've known Mike ever since I was a Portage policeman, a detective. I mean, Mike's been around a while too, and I think it's an excellent choice. Mike is he's a hardworking guy. He knows all the police, and he'll be fair on both sides. And I think he did just a good job, and I know he'll do it. I've spoke to him a couple times since the appointment was announced, and he's going to do everything he can to continue all the programs that Judge Gent started.
That's great.
So that's good.
That's awesome.
And we are running out of time, so we're going to have to
Yeah.
close out the show here. Sheriff, I can't tell you how much of an honor
you.
it's been for you always to be on this show. Was really at one time my co-host for a while.
Oh,
Yeah, we were running those roundtable discussions,
Yes.
and then he says, "Now we got to do domestic abuse." And I was waiting for the next one to come along. So, welcome back, and we are
Okay.
going to talk about a show that you're going to have, and we'll be here to engineer, do all the tech stuff,
Okay.
and you'll just own the microphone. So,
Oh, good.
and we'll give you more information about that. And with that, we'll close out the show. Megan.
Yeah. So, yes, thank you so much, Sheriff. We really appreciate you being here. Recovery Radio is underwritten by Lawn Pro Lawn Care and Pact Incorporated. We just want to thank you guys for your support for making this happen. Recovery Radio is a program of Pact. I'm Megan Johnston here with Bill Moran. On behalf of WVLP, Pact Incorporated, and our community, we would like to thank you so much for listening. Have a good day, everyone.
Searching party. Take me home, oh mother, father.